mentioned, Ally Security provides a software platform built for tabletop facilitators. We run this live Tabletop Thursday exercise once a month to show different threats, different facilitation methods, different tabletop tools. For each event, we bring in a expert guest facilitator. Today we have Dan Weiss, who, in addition to spending many years in cyber, is also a game designer, and he's built his own product to deliver exercises. I'll let Dan introduce himself shortly, but this exercise is going to be very different than what you've seen in the past if you've joined multiple TTX Thursdays. Today, we're going to have dice rolls. We're going to have an interactive incident timeline. We also have another special guest who's our adversary, Skip. Dan described him earlier as professionally devious, which I like. And as our players respond, Skip may be doing things that alter the direction of the exercise a bit. So these exercises are for fun. They're for learning. We're playing a fictitious company. We have fictitious roles. So keep all that in mind as we move through this. We hope you find things that you can bring back to your organization, to your clients. So for everyone in the audience, like I mentioned, please try to keep this interactive. Add your comments, add your thoughts, share freely, if you will. And before I turn it over to Dan, just a quick reminder that this is being recorded. It'll be available on YouTube after the stream, so you can always share it with any colleagues who may have missed today. Now, over to you, Dan, to introduce our scenario and Widget World's incident response team.
Perfect. Thanks, Rob. Thanks, everybody, for joining, and thank you for my players. I'm going to go through as part of this and have everybody introduce themselves, give a little background on the players, but first a little background on TTX Works. I founded TTX Works. I created the framework because I wanted a more interactive tabletop exercise. It's such an incredibly valuable tool, the tabletop exercise. We get access to executives and decision makers who don't normally involve themselves in cybersecurity stuff, except in bad circumstances. So it's an opportunity to kind of give them some insight into how we do what we do and why their involvement is vital and important. So I'm going to explain a little bit about how today's exercise works. Who's sharing their screen? Who's the viewer? So what you're seeing on screen now is actually the interface, the tabletop itself. It's a little blank at the moment, but things will light up and get more interesting as we go on. The TTX framework was basically built using design principles from a lot of narrative tabletop role-playing games. I don't know how many of you out there, I'm assuming it's probably a good number, have played Dungeons and Dragons and maybe still play, have heard of a game called Blades in the Dark. It's more narrative-based than you would think, but there is some rules and some justification in it. So think Dungeons and Dragons, but instead the dungeon is your business. In practice, it means there's no pre-written path. The team, the players, can do any action they can justify. And Skip Duckwall is going to be playing the live adversary. They're not following a script. They have some goals of things they're trying to do, and they're going to act and react in response to what the players and the teams do based on what they can see and what moves them towards their goal, just like bad guys. So what'll happen is everybody gets to tell me what their team is doing. All they have to do is justify it. They can tell me why they're doing it, if they've got any special circumstances, if they've got any special skills, any tools that might impact their capability to pull it off. You can even have multiple teams pair up together and work together, just like we do in a real incident. The one restriction is each team can only be working on a single action at a time. So the teams also have a special resource that we'll see in demonstration later called Focus that lets them actually do a variety of cool things. And there are consequences for their actions. When you spend effort, when you spend focus, you may get burnt out. You may build up stress. Stress, well, we've all lived with it before, particularly if you've been in an incident, can really dramatically impede your ability to act. So for every point of stress the team builds up, they're going to have a small negative penalty. And if they ever hit six stress, they're burnt out, and they're out of the exercise until they can find a way to lower their stress. This is all relevant because there's also a special mechanic that we call contingency. If the team has an action, makes a roll, and doesn't like the outcome, they can actually spend focus and give me some activity or action that they've done in the past that would help them mitigate the results. And they pay for that by accumulating stress and spending focus. You'll see it in play most likely. It usually happens a few times during the exercise. So First thing I'm going to do is we'll actually have all the players go around and introduce themselves and introduce their roles. I think maybe we'll start at the top of the org chart and have the CEO introduce themselves.
Hi, everybody. My name is Lindsay. I am the cybersecurity administrator at Mountain View Electric. We're an electric cooperative in Colorado. And today I am playing the CEO.
Want to give us a little background on the CEO?
Well, as CEOs typically do, I make quick decisions. I have some strategic networking partnerships, people I rely on to give me correct information. And, I can call in favors when I need to.
Perfect. All right. So next would be our COO.
Hi, everyone. I'm Rob Curtin Seifert. I'm a security consultant. And today I'm playing the Chief Operating Officer. I've been with Widget World for 6 years and built a supply chain that runs it and keeps it profitable. My character does not speak cyber, so I will be asking a lot of, what does that mean?
Sounds about right. All right. What about the CIO? Oh, did we not have? Well, we have the CIO is vacant, right? The CIO is on vacation. Actually, the player had to cancel at the last minute. So we're going to go right to the CISO, who's going to be the acting CIO.
Hi, everyone. My name is Cameron Cottam. I work at a financial services company in the UK, and I'm in your CISO. So to give context, I've been at the Widget World for about kind of 14 months and kind of inherited a lot of the current kind of structure and kind of process of within the company. So my role is basically to translate a lot of the technical stuff to more of the non-technical folk and kind of to discuss more of the business side of things when it comes to the technical side.
Awesome. And then last but certainly not least is legal.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Matt Bryan. I am a OT network security and network engineer. I delve mostly onto the architectural and design pieces at various places where I've worked in for my clients. I am playing legal today, whereas I am fascinated with legal TV shows. I absolutely do not speak legalese, so this will be an interesting foray for me. But in terms of my role within the activity, there have been some recent submissions that I made to policy changes within the company that have yet to been approved, and they may or may not come into play as we make our way through the activities of today.
Thanks, Matt. And the last participant in the exercise is all of you. As our audience, you are all playing the roles of observers, but your input is valuable. Just like in a normal large-scale tabletop exercise, you'll have a bunch of people sitting around the outside of the room who can participate, who can give feedback, make suggestions. You all have that role. The team is going to be looking at chat. They may take your suggestions. They may not take your suggestions. Please feel free to make them. You will all have valuable insight and information to bring to the table during the exercise. No,
Dan,
hopefully not.
you forgot sales and marketing.
Oh, I did forget to. I can't believe, Rob, I forgot sales and marketing. And you were the first assigned. So sorry, please, Rob. Actually, it's appropriate. Go in. Sell sales.
Yeah, so I'm Rob Henley. I am playing sales and marketing today. And I own some very important customer relationships that may or may not be impacted here today. I also own some marketing functions that I'm not fully equipped to own, including the AI customer chatbot. So we'll see how that goes. And I had a little bit of a light Q1, so I've been looking to juice the Q2 numbers a bit. We'll see if that plays out, if we're looking at some good opportunities after this exercise or not.
Thanks, Rob. And again, I'm sorry to neglect sales. You guys make sure that we have the money to spend on our budgets, so and including affording tabletop exercises. So it's really important not to neglect sales. All right, so you are all employees of Widget World, the world's largest manufacturer of industrial widgets. Your widgets sit at the heart of many businesses, largely manufacturing and distribution, and your relatively recent and largest client is industrial giant Walcart, who, if you've attended Tabletop Thursday before, you might be familiar with. We joined the team. It's today, Thursday the 25th. It's 9 a.m. Eastern. At 6:12 this morning, the NOC lit up as an older QA cluster suddenly went dark. By 6:30, the CIO was on phone with the NOC, and by 6:42, an ominous message had arrived in 3 of the inboxes: the CEO, the CFO, and the CISOs. It came from an internal-looking address flagged external by the mail filter. The subject line was, "A small demonstration, your move." The message itself was calm. It said the 612 wipe was theirs. It said, quote, "We're inside the build pipeline. We hold the firmware signing key, and release 26.4.2, the version your customers installed 3 weeks ago, including Wallcart, is ours." They claim to hold the Wallcart Master Services Agreement, your board minutes, your top 40 customer pricing, and your firmware source. A page of the MSA, a screenshot of what appears to be firmware beaconing to one of your IPs from a remote host, and a countdown reading 96 hours were attached. Their demand, $42 million in Bitcoin. The message ended with one line: "The next demonstration will not be in a QA environment." And it was signed, "A professional." You're all sitting around the table. What's next? All right, CEO, you're in charge, or CISO, this is an incident. You're in charge. Who's running things?
So yeah, I would probably clearly point myself to more like in terms of leading the incident and delivering more of the kind of try and deliver the technical side of things to more of the business understanding. So it would be kind of more chairing the call, assembling kind of legal marks, kind of legal the CEO to and like other relevant parties to discuss what to tackle next. And in terms would be reviewing kind of the initial communications been delivered from the email to understand. The email's obviously been sent from sender trying to
Here,
masquerade as the IT.
I'm going to show you all. That's the email.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to tap Cameron first to validate it to make sure that this is a legitimate claim
All
before
right,
we
so
all overreact.
first thing that we've got here is on your screens in the background behind the email, you should see the first item appear. So TTX Works doesn't track by looking at your network. It tracks things the way they happen in forensics and the way they happen in the real world. We use timelines. So there are incidents on timelines. You can close that email out and you'll see it. So that is the first timeline event. If it's pictured in a circle, it means it's an event. When you all choose what actions you're going to take, those are in diamonds, and you'll see they attach to each other and have a variety of relative pieces. All right, so CEO, you asked for what, confirmation of what?
I just want to validate what we're seeing to make sure that, before we react, this is a real incident.
Okay, so who would be involved? Who would actually own that action? Would that be Cameron?
I would think so. Technical skills.
All right, Cameron, how long do you think it's going to take? How long do you think you're going to actually?
Well, in the initial email, there's been observed to be attachments of what the supposed kind of data that the threat actors exfiltrate. So it'll be more validating, ensuring if that data is real or if it's like an previous old one. So it's ensure like to verify if they actually had access to the data that they're claiming to. So validating the data that they've attached, but also checking any recent kind of events. There was kind of an unusual kind of access was alerted for a vault 3 weeks ago.
Mhm.
The auto close by the SRE within our CIO's org. So it's more kind of revisiting that specific event to verify if that's where the initial access attempted, where they first gathered like access.
Okay. So how long do you think you're gonna set aside? Are you gonna do like an initial triage period of limit it to 30 minutes before you make a decision, or are you gonna let it run as long as you think it's gonna take?
Probably a quick triage in terms of validating the sources. So probably depending like maybe 5-10 minutes as soon as possible. Probably immediate
right.
just action.
All right. So your incident response plan basically recommends that you take about a 20-minute at most. So you want to just limit to 10 and say, give me what you can give me in 10 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay. So Now we're actually going to calculate out. So I've got a 10-minute activity called confirm incident that's owned by your team. Now, we always start from a position. That position basically determines your base chance. And I would say that your position right now is stable, not contested. So you got a 50-50 shot. What tools, assets, or skills or other things can you give me that might give you a positive chance to actually nail things down and identify?
We'd probably utilize like our advanced SIEM to verify and correlate any log sources around the time, especially with the unusual access to the vault, and then identify any potential kind of unusual activity within that space.
All right, and that advanced SIEM is one of the assets that you have on your team sheet, right?
Yes.
And that bonus is what, 10%, 15%?
15.
All right, so it gives you a 15%. So you actually put this in a little while ago. You don't have any stress yet. There are no real negative modifiers to your chance here. So you have got yourself a decent chance to actually, you've got a 65% chance. So if you look at your screen, I am actually going to request a roll from you. Let's go ahead and see how you do.
Yep.
An 85 is not great. That's a complication. So it means you succeeded, but there's some stuff to it. So part of it is going to be Skip.
Yes.
You become aware that there's some activity specifically probing some of the infrastructure that you used for what you've the control that you've got. So that is the complication on this particular piece, and it's going to move everybody's position overall down to stable. So right now you've taken every action that you guys take is going to be a little bit harder because of the complication. But you do get some information. You are able to confirm the patch, the firmware version looks like it matches the one you've got. The hashes check out. The signature is accurate. So they used a valid key. They used your valid key. And actually, it's with 10 minutes, you don't have that much detail. You are actually still seeing traffic beacon back actively from Walcart into your environment.
Yeah. So I've seen active traffic. Repeat what you said there, sorry. So it was active traffic from Widget World or Walcart.
It's traffic coming from Walcart into Widget World.
Yeah. So in terms of that, like if we confirm that there was kind of very unusual access, we attempt to try and more restrict access as much as possible in terms of as well as more containment to look at any kind of unknown kind of network access within that space.
Okay, so we'll move on to that in a minute. In the interim, what do you report back to the IRC?
So I would report back saying that we have confirmed kind of unusual access where we may potentially confirm. Well, we've confirmed the incident potentially has some verifying that has some like validation to it. So in that sense, we should bring on the more relevant parties to discuss our terms of more of our business continuity, like kind of our disaster recovery business continuity plans to discuss what would be the next steps and approach in terms of like more of a legal side of things.
All right, so I heard legal side of things.
That would be my next phone call is to legal to say, yes, we have a confirmed problem. Now what?
I don't think that needs an action. And before we adjudicate the CISO second actions, legal, what other stuff do you have to contribute or what stuff are you going to be doing?
Well, I lost my view to the play screen.
So you do have outside breach counsel who you have very good friends with. And also you should remember, you also have an outside response firm and you do have cyber insurance. So those are all things that you might want to consider timing on from the administrative side of things as you're trying to cut access.
All right. Are we already investigating the or validating the system integrities of the various systems that were listed within the threat to identify which systems they claim to have access to?
So that's your team.
Yeah, so we've investigated that they obviously have access to our QA environment and potentially to more wider. So we're investigating in terms of if there's any persistence or any other like unusual activity from like the source event of when they initially access the vault, to see whether there's any correlation between any type of containment actions where they've still may maintain access.
Okay, yeah, I think I'm going to go ahead and make the external call out to Pam Ivy to get her input as to her perspective.
All right, very good. So we'll set that as an action too. And Cameron, Jim's got a couple of great suggestions and questions in chat that you may want to figure out and roll into your actions here. Because the CIO is on vacation in Cabo and doesn't have any access, so their deputy CIO is in charge, and they are not ready to handle an incident. So you de facto can actually also command some of the CIO standard IT resources in addition to just your CISO team.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And in that case, would be probably immediately kind of disabling access to the QA environment, since that's been the confirmed point where they've demonstrated that they've gained access to our kind of environment. So kind of disable access to that entirely.
All right. So let's actually start generating.
Wait, before we go,
yes.
do that. We have our next firmware batch is supposed to hit QA tomorrow, right? And if we shut down that pipeline, then our plant in Guadalajara will be on a backlog and be shut down by next Wednesday. And we'll be losing millions of dollars today.
Yeah, we would need to.
Do we really want to shut down that pipeline?
Well, we need to still investigate to confirm that the wider kind of pipelines haven't been infected. Because again, there's not much time in terms of dwell. If it's more considering the time spent that the threat actor has in the kind of environment, because as I mentioned, there was unusual access to a vault that happened 3 weeks ago. So there's not entirely confident that we can't be sure that that new pipeline has not been also infected. So it would require validation on that sense.
Okay.
It's a risk that it's not yeah.
All right.
I also have a concern with the protective components of this. I mean, obviously, we still need to validate what's truly been impacted or has been compromised. Yet at the same time, I feel that we need to isolate whatever systems we can that still allows us to maintain our investigation at the same time. So, I'm requesting that we do what we can to isolate any type of lateral movement or lateral access that the bad actor might have within the environment.
Okay. Perfect. All right, so let's actually do the first action first, the continue the forensics act. And that's going to be the CISO, that's going to be your team, correct?
Yeah.
And we're going to assume that you're using your advanced SIEM again.
For the forensic side, I'd probably call it the DFR that we have on retainer.
Okay. All right. So you're going to invoke that. So they're not going to actually be able to start because they're not an incident response piece, but which is fine. So we're going to put the forensics firm in. What bonus do they give you? Is it a 10% bonus?
It doesn't actually state on the sheet.
All right, we're going to give you a 10% bonus for that. However, it's going to take them 4 hours to kind of get everybody to get boots on the ground to get there. They can be on the network and start looking at your forensic stuff within an hour. Mm-hmm. But it's going to take an hour or more for them to actually get started and go on those particular pieces.
Yeah. And in that case, if it's probably more in terms of more time to respond, then maybe it wouldn't be the best approach if it's taken quite a long time for them to get on it. So maybe switch to more of the advanced SIEM.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you've activated the forensics, right?
Yeah.
So in 4 hours, they'll be their drop bags will be filled. They'll be there. They'll be on site. So we're going to put the advanced SIEM. Which gives you a 15% bonus. Your adversary has taken some actions. It's going to make it a little bit harder. We'll see if you can figure out what those actions are. And how long are you going to spend on that? You're going to spend an hour, 2 hours, 4 hours, 8 hours, spend until the forensics firm shows up and hands off to them? What time are we looking at for that?
Probably within like the first hour, in terms
All
of more investigation for the DFR firm gets involved.
All right, so we're gonna request another roll from you. Did you get the pop-up? There we go. A critical success, so we'll adjudicate that excellently. So, all right, and then what the other action was? Who was the next action that we were going to take? You were going to activate Pam, right, Matt? You're going to call the breach counsel. So breach counsel tells you, Pam gets on the phone with you, says, "Oh, it sounds disastrous. All right, let's get things going. We have this planned. All communications and reports should be sent to me, and I'll disseminate from there. That way we can maintain confidentiality on those particular pieces." Have you let cyber insurance know yet?
Not as of yet, no.
Okay. And then, so I don't think there's any action adjudication needed for that at this point, unless you're taking any other actions legal.
Not at this time. I do want to maintain our current status before we engage with insurance provider to make sure we can keep our resources engaged as long as possible and not get things complicated with the insurance provider.
All right. So who actually who reaches out to the insurance provider? Whose role is that in your response?
Honestly, I don't know.
I'll tell you what, if nobody has a strong suggestion, since this isn't in a real company, you guys would hopefully know, although there have been incidents where it's not clear. I'll let you say it's been defined. You tell me who makes that call.
I would think the CFO would probably make that call.
Agreed. So the CFO is not represented here, but we'll have the CFO make that call. And that doesn't need a role. That's just a thing that happens. So next action that we were adjudicating was Cameron getting overloaded here, as the CISO often does, this time putting on the CIO role, right? You were trying to segment traffic or restrict access?
Yeah, so kind of restrict access, kind of more containing, like disabling access to the QA environment and kind of restricting access where we can in terms to prevent more of like the lateral movement side within our environment.
All right, so who are you restricting? You just restricting all access in and out of the QA environment? How are you restricting that access?
So in terms of restricting, it would be kind of more of the secure, like our information security team should be more in terms of access in that environment. Maybe some like engineering infrastructure side of things as well to kind of communicate in terms of what would be the next in terms of analyzing the environment.
Okay. So what do you have anything that might give you an opportunity or advantage to actually function in that? Oh, let me actually also tell you, well, the CIO may or may not actually have relevant skills. Some of them are interpersonal.
Mm-hmm.
So the CIO has crisis leadership, which unfortunately doesn't let them hear, but they do actually have network visibility. So they have something that will give a +10 bonus. They understand the breadth, their team understands the width and the breadth of the network very well. So you can use that to actually help understand what's going on the network and to try and contain access to and from the QA environment.
Yeah. So in terms of disabling the access and restricting it, would be more validating what credentials and what kind of vault access occurred. So if it's whether from like the questions on the panel there, like whether it was like determined to be like more of a system, or is it a system account or service account even, or like a specific user, like was that a malicious insider threat that may have sold it to the threat actor? So be more validating, reviewing kind of access logs.
Okay, so you're not actually cutting off access to you're not segmenting that network off. That's still part of the forensics piece.
Yeah.
All right, so that's adjudicated under that same action. We're not going to make that a separate action. Players, if you're not looking, there's some really good questions in the comments about compliance requirements, contractual obligations for disclosure that I suggest that you have the discussion on, because if you're not even talking about the disclosure right now, we're only a couple of hours into the incident, but understanding what your disclosure requirements are important. And sales, you've just gotten wind of what's going on, and the name Walcart came up early on with some concern.
Yeah, I'm not sure why I was invited to this call. I've been trying to close end of Q2 deals and but I was messaging with Wallcard on the side and they did say that they didn't send any of their data to us on purpose. Um hopefully I didn't tip them off to anything too much there, but um you know, they're a good relationship. Had dinner with them last week, so hopefully we can
So
get the
Rob,
communication going.
that
Oh
actually
yeah.
came up as no Rob Henley. That actually came up on the call because they mentioned that they had kind of an unexpected patch a few weeks ago, and then they meant to ask you about what was up with that. It was a little bit out of cycle, but it was valid and it ran. But it was on their sales and marketing team's person, their procurement's person list to ask you. Their ops person asked you to ask about it.
Yeah, well, I'd probably ask our engineering team about that then. And was I authorized to speak to the third party? Well, I was already talking to them. They're my customer, but I was somehow invited to this incident response call that I wasn't aware of, and I happened to share some information with them.
And you guys don't have to worry about disclosing stuff. I mean, you know, the Wallcard CEO and I are like super good buddies, so I already gave him a call. No big deal.
It's a CEO for you. Fantastic. Right. So I'm not actually going to create a second action because you guys haven't actually tried to actually triage that by cutting off access. You're still in the discovery phase of things. So Matt, when the CFO calls you back and says, yes, I called cyber insurance. They wanted to make sure that we were retaining everything, that we did proper due diligence, that we'd activated the incident response team, and they're sending over the name of breach counsel they want us to use.
Are we, does that mean that we have to disconnect with who we've currently engaged with, or are we allowed to keep them as part of the process?
I don't know. You'll have to negotiate with them. They just told me that they were going to send over an email. It's who they use.
Okay, well, that will definitely need to be discussed because that is, we definitely want to keep our own resources engaged with this. So I'm not sure who I need to talk to continue the negotiations with them directly, but we're going to stand pretty firm on this one.
All right, so that is we'll actually roll that. That's going to be an action negotiations with the cyber insurance. We'll do that in a sec. First thing is we're about halfway through the exercise timing, and I want to make sure everybody understands there's no way. Normally, one of these runs 4 hours or more to actually run through most of the scenario. So what we're going to do instead is we've actually put a set of goals together for the team to try and reach, and it's kind of like the survive the first 48 hours. Rob, if you want to actually pull up the Rob Henley, if you want to pull up the goals. It's the node all the way, the one that looks like three points connected by 2 lines, and then that pulls up a menu and you can just use the bullseye.
Lock the adversary out of core systems, determine the best approach to notification, release a patch, discover initial vector of entry, and don't get blown up.
So those are your goals. That's what we're going to try and judge you against, not actually successfully concluding the exercise, because the exercise in this case would go on over multiple hours with this level of intensity and discussion. So keep those in mind as you're making your actions for the next one. All right, so first let's go ahead and we're actually going to make that the action of the breach negotiation is going to be concurrent with the confirm the incident. That's concurrent with the continue forensics after you've done the incident. So we're going to add another action. And we're going to do the breach counsel. And this is actually to determine if you're successful in convincing insurance to cover PAM or not, and you have to use their firm and who you have no relationship with. Okay. So we're going to call this argue with insurance, something that I think most people on this call are familiar with to some degree or another. And that's going to be legal. Are there any special skills or other pieces that you've got that can give you an advantage on attempting to wrangle out the solution that you'd like?
I know I did have a couple of cards. I don't see what they're
All right, let's look real quickly. I'll pull up pull up your legal sheet and I'll tell you. You've got regulatory expertise, which gives you a bonus to any action that involves regulatory law or compliance. And you've got wall of paper. You can spend distress and improve the result of any kind of activity that or any other team's activity by providing timely legal expertise. So you can't really use that in this case, but you could try your regulatory expertise. You could make an argument.
It's kind of a stretch in my mind.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to hold off on that one.
All right. So you've got a straight 50-50 shot, and you're going to get a pop-up in a sec to make that roll. And we'll see how you do arguing with insurance. Do you see the pop-up?
I do not, no.
Better hit F5 and refresh your screen.
F5.
Welcome to VoiceOver. VoiceOver.
Oh, I don't even see you logged into the. I don't even see you logged into the game server.
VoiceOver speaks to script.
That's what I'm saying. I think I lost view of that. So
you better log back in.
Oh, is that's that URL that we had earlier?
Yes,
correct?
that was the URL you had.
Okay. I apologize. That was
no problem.
My bad.
In the interim, I'm just going to roll it for you.
Sure.
Oh, you did really well. You had a critical success there. So your arguments actually were fantastic. Pam helped you craft the arguments. So they are so convinced with her bona fides that you can continue to use Pam, which is going to give you a bonus on anything that involves the paperwork or the legalities or communication, because you've got this great working relationship with Pam. So for the rest of the exercise, you have a little bit of a bonus on those particular pieces. All right, so the continued forensics. Well, you rolled pretty well on the continued forensics check, right?
Yes.
Yeah. The outcome was. Yeah, you had a 15 out of which is a pretty good success. So after a dedicated hour of looking at it, it looks like your team uncovered that the build looked valid, came through, was actually signed, but it looks like there was some weird access at odd times through one of the lead developers. It's really your Rockstar developer, internal. The Rockstar developer on the DevOps team, it came from his IP, his home IP. He does work remotely from time to time, but it came at like 3 in the morning, and they're not usually active at 3 in the morning.
Yeah, so kind of immediately at that point, we go to more of the containment side of the user's account, given the situation at hand and like the kind of the abnormal time of authentication and when it happens. So the best, of course, we kind of more contain the user's account immediately to prevent any further activity, and kind of identifying what wider behavior he's been doing around that time, separate from kind of the vault access, whether he was doing any other unusual activity at that time.
Okay. So give me a quick run. So you're going to continue forensics looking at their machine?
Yeah, and isolate the user's account.
Okay, and you're going to lock the user. It's fine. All right. So everybody else who's sitting around the table, what other stuff are you going to be doing now? Is there anything you can or should be doing to check your notification requirements, check your contractual requirements, prep a message? What are you doing to move things forward?
Well, I'm going to be reviewing the Walcart contract because we need that revenue for the next phase of our growth. So I'm going to make sure that I can do everything in my power to make sure we're dotting all our I's and crossing our T's.
All right. So, all right, perfect. So you look through it. It's pretty obvious, actually. You would look through it with Matt and Pam. You find in the MSA that it tells you that in the event of a severity 1 type event, you have a 2-hour notification window. For stuff that's under investigation that's SEV 2 or more, it's 24 hours.
Okay. I don't see cyber. So can we break that down, Matt? So figure out what type of incident this is. Where's that fall in? Are we in the 2-hour window or the 24-hour window?
Matthias, I'm not sure he's coming back from vacation. It was a bad time.
Does anyone at this table know?
Cameron, do you know what would constitute a SEV 1? Do you think this would constitute a SEV 1 or a SEV 2? The senior executives are asking. You're not sure why they're asking.
In terms of like confirming the incident, yeah. So from the kind of the email provided and the user unusual access account, it'd probably be safe to confirm it's an incident so that we all kind of on the same basis of where to go and continue forward.
Awesome.
From just a pure ITIL perspective, it would almost have to be a SEV 1 because you're looking at impact and plus legal impact as well as company, public perspective of the company's abilities. So I don't see how it could be anything but a SEV 1, honestly.
Yeah.
And we know, Lindsay, you already contacted and let the CEO of Walcart know. Do we have to do any other notifications to them?
So I actually also just sent him a bottle of whiskey since we can't play golf this afternoon. I feel like we should start notifying customers. So I don't know, someone get comms on the phone and tell them that they got to start notifying everybody.
All right. So why don't I sit down with legal and we start drafting the responses or the notifications to the clients.
Right. So do you have a pre-done in your incident response playbook? Do you have a template of the language, or are you drafting this off the cuff? You certainly haven't prepared for the fact that you may have shipped malware to your biggest client. So that's probably not something you prepared for, but you may have some templates of language. I also note that you guys haven't actually locked any systems. You lock one developer out. Cameron, so Rob, Cameron's team lets you know that there's some unusual behavior with your Rockstar developer. It looks like there was some weird connectivity, and some of the activity that was associated with the build that went to Walcart, amongst others, a few weeks ago, was associated with their account, but it happened at like 3 a.m. Unfortunately, that developer, he's an outdoors buff. And he is currently on vacation in Joshua Tree, and he's not reachable by cell phone or anything, and won't be for another couple of days. But oddly enough, his laptop is on and still connected.
Yeah. So in terms of that, then if his laptop's still active and stuff, it would be immediately kind of severing any connection. So isolating the device itself to lock out that user's endpoint.
But also we'd be locked up for days, right? And his laptop's at his house.
Well, if we have the capabilities with like our endpoint solution, we can easily kind of isolate his device remotely via our platform, as you have the sensor installed on his machine. So even as long as if it's on, it means we can easily kind of isolate that machine, but also try and gather more of a forensic side of things of an image of the user's endpoint machine to identify if there's been any exposure or kind of malicious kind of content on the user's endpoint as well.
All right, so this is an action. You're going to actually, so let's actually create the action for your team here. So you're going to cut the dev access.
Yep.
And what other actions were you taking?
So cut the dev's access, isolate his machine, and gather like a forensic image of the device.
Yep. Well, Howard, his machine is sitting in a hotel room near Joshua Tree, so you're not going to be able to forensically image that machine, but you certainly can cut the access.
Yeah. So in terms of that aspect, then we've just cut the access and isolate the user's machine, and try and reach out to that user as much as possible.
I'm actually going to, that's a pretty easy routine thing to do. There's no chance that you're not going to be able to cut it. So I'm actually going to make that an event. And that took place at 10. That was an hour. It's 11. That takes place at all right, so you cut the dev access. Rob Henley, you get a call from a couple of your other customers. They're your mid-sized customers, but they've been long customers. And I tell you that they've been seeing weird traffic all morning come from some of their widgets. It looks like it's phoning home to you guys. I mean, it took them some time. They've been investigating for a few hours, but it looks like there's some traffic going bidirectionally between their networks and an IP block that belongs to you guys. And they want to know what's going on. They're getting concerned.
Yeah, I've been getting a lot of calls from customers, so I just need to know what my marching orders are from a messaging perspective here, because right now I'm just trying to hold people at bay. My instinct is to keep them as happy as possible, though. So I hope I haven't divulged too much already.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, Skip, by the way, about 20 minutes ago, you lost access through one of your access points. The network for the developer just dropped offline. But that may or may not be your only path in.
In terms of Rob's, in terms of comms, it would be kind of more well, to the more right of him, it'd be probably ideal for our clients and customers to potentially revoke any kind of access tokens, any kind of access within our Rigid app between their services. So while we can confirm and continue the investigation further, so it protects their kind of exposure.
I'm really concerned about liability at this point. I'm really wanting us to start pulling plugs for anything that we can identify, or maybe even things that we think should be preventative. Because right now it seems to be getting worse, not better.
Yeah. So it'd be more in terms of more preventive measures. It'd be more again, identifying any types of changes within the pipeline of the firmware around the time when that developer accesses machines. So we would try and identify what's been changed around that time, as well. Trying just to ensure like any type of access can be restricted or blocked from like on an external side. So if there's any external access, or reviewing the user's machine to identify if there's any kind of unusual behavior that happened on the device, to identify, we would try and identify why, if there's been any suspicious downloads or any kind of potential malware that's been executed. So we can review the security stack as well in terms of that user's device to identify anything unusual.
It seems to be more than that, though. It seems, I mean, if we've got we've got traffic coming from client sites that's unexpected, non-deterministic, and outside the scope of what was normal, that's got to be suspicious, and that, in my opinion, should be stopped and then investigated rather than the other way around.
Yeah. So Paul,
I almost think we need to disconnect everything and then only reconnect the things that we know that we have to give us access for investigation.
How is that going to affect my Q2 sales?
That's almost irrelevant at this point. Your Q2 sales may not occur if we can't resolve this today.
All right. While you guys are having this discussion, your corporate Slack pings with a message into the incident response group that you guys are using, and it's from a professional, and it says, "I see what you're doing there. I suggest you just pay and stop trying to cut me out. I own your network. I own you all. Pay me my money." And in addition, obviously, Rob H has reported the additional calls he's gotten from his team. All right. The other thing I want to note is you have made some initial efforts to try and lock the adversary out. So I'm putting that from not started to partially complete. And you've also done some forensics to discover the initial source. So I'm putting that to partial not complete. Currently, you also have the goal of determining the best approach to take is not start. Actually, you know what? Based on this discussion, I'm going to actually move that to partial. It's in process. But you haven't started releasing a patch to fix things. And I think you're partially avoiding, you're partially avoiding not getting blown up, but I'm not sure you're ever going to get there. You guys, we've only got about 10 minutes left, so we're going to try and isolate the next couple of actions before we move to the close-up.
So I know a guy who speaks this security stuff that I don't understand, but he said there's like some supply chain thing. Who worked on this update? Who wrote the code for it?
Rob, that was
would be the
your team. Rob,
Yeah,
Kirk,
that was the Rockstar. That was the Rockstar developer that's currently in the mountains.
he was the lead. He was the lead dev on the all firmware patches. Yeah.
Okay.
And you're getting some suggestions from in the chat for actions to take and things to do. So let's circle the group back together. Cameron, the timeline's been pretty compressed, but the boots on the ground from your incident responders are there, and they are now digging into the machines in the network, looking for forensics and looking to try and uncover some information for you. You've given them a good place to look, and the work you've already done is very helpful to kind of get them started. So they are hard at work on those particular pieces. But yeah, we're now midday through the first day, and we've engaged the breach council. We've engaged cyber insurance. You've still got active traffic coming in and out from a variety of different sources, and you haven't notified any of your partners or clients yet. And you haven't moved to actually realistically move to contain it. And you've got no patch, which you're sure everybody's going to want to patch shortly. So you've got all those priorities to juggle. Figure out amongst yourselves who's going to do what for the next actions.
Yeah, I think and like what Matt was saying, kind of look at more investigating the unusual traffic that we were seeing, to identify what is occurring, and then if there's any additional kind of like containment actions or sever those connections, essentially try and block any kind of external outbound kind of internet access where we get from those findings. As well, maybe it would be enhanced to review what actual code the developer actually wrote, and see if we can bring in more of our other developers to identify and review it in terms of any add-in, like releasing a patch.
All right, so I think that checking the patch and checking the build would be Rob's Curtin Seifert's team, right? That's DevOps. And so, and then Cam, I think your team and the CIO team would work together to try and restrict. Now, are you restricting inbound access from the beacons? Are you restricting outbound access to those IPs? Are you restricting all access? What access are you killing? What are you slicing off?
It'd be more ideal to more kind of restrict in terms of inbound kind of access, in terms of what's actually kind of business critical that's not been related to this. So to kind of more isolate in terms of like what you mentioned earlier, like segmentation, to kind of more only allow the traffic that we necessarily do allow. So for in terms of like the QA environment and like our product, maybe our non-prod and production environments, try and restrict and limit like more, I guess, I know I said inbound, but more to say probably outbound stuff, as we're seeing more connections between our services and like our clients.
All right, so you're going to cut inbound access from
outbound, sorry.
Sorry, so you're going to do egress and outbound to where?
No, like restrict any kind of outbound access to like our resources.
So you're basically gonna try and throttle all outbound access?
Yeah.
All right.
Well, how would that prevent us from doing a firmware recall and rolling back firmware to a known good?
I guess it's more looking at the timeline of when the new firmware patch would be available, and then from there we can look at more like timeline of releasing it. Is probably the main question, is when the timeline of when it's going to be released.
So can we roll back to a known good before the incident? Do we have the capabilities?
You do have capabilities, but it's going to take some time and effort to find out what do you consider the last known good.
Yeah. So
let's first adjudicate the throttling the outbound access, because there's likely some complications. So basically what you're doing is you're restricting all outbound internet activity from the enterprise.
Yeah. Okay.
Then do you have anything that could help you, any tools, skills, anything that could help you successfully do that without impacting the business in a major way, or you're just going to roll the dice?
Yeah, there's nothing specific assets that could specifically aid with this one. Be more a case of rolling the dice.
All right. I'm requesting the roll from you. This is a contested roll. It's challenging. Oh, all right. So fortunately, the firmware, the beacons seem to be set to a pretty predictable area, and you throttle those, and you don't manage to crash the business, although it is inconvenient. Emails are getting bounced back and forth a couple of times. You sometimes have to send it 3 or 4 times before it actually makes it out. There is no internet browsing, and any real-time connectivity you've had to other clients for valid purposes is now triggering alerts at the client side and your side because the connections keep popping up and down. But you didn't crash everything. All right, and Rob, so your team is investigating writing a patch, which part of that is actually trying to go back and find the last known good.
Yep, and I'm using a expert team of developers. So I'm using one of my
Yep.
cards.
All right, so let's adjudicate that one. We'll call that firmware patch and forensics. And you've got an expert team, which is good. That is going to give you a bonus. The whole position is actually contested. But your expert team gives you a bonus of 10%. And we're going to assign that to the COO. And you should have an opportunity to roll in a second.
Can I play a card too, Dan?
Yeah. All right. Unfortunately, so they look at it and the team's first optimistic, and then as they look back, they're looking at patches all the way back months through early April, maybe even March, that look like that has unfamiliar code in it. They don't have anything that they can reliably trust. They're going to have to build it, then cobble it together. It's going to take them a couple of days of effort to rebuild something, because if they roll back to the version from a few months ago that there's known good, there's functionality that's out there in the field. It's just not completely backwards compatible. So it's a pretty sizable effort to do. They can do it, but it's a major issue. And then was that Matt or Skip who wanted a card on something?
No, I wanted to use my wall of paper on
Oh, got it.
forensic efforts.
Well, I don't know that the wall of paper would be good for the devs, but hang on. I want to update some stuff too. And then because I think with 5 minutes left, we're going to have to pause here, and narratively we'll come up with the outcome and make that available with the report. That we'll do an after action report on the demo. So you got started on all of if you open up the goals, and you can all find the goals if you go to that menu, the lower left, the docs, and then open it. So, and I do think you actually will give you credit for completing the best approach, which was cutting the access and doing a rollback. And you didn't actually get completely blown up yet, but there was some more fun coming. All right, so quick rundown from the folks at the table. What did this highlight about the situation and the big challenges that you guys all faced?
Probably more in terms of like more identification of like you access like it. Sorry, I'll rephrase. The kind of the more initial handling of like the kind of alert, like from the background, there's the unusual access to the vault that kind of got auto closed on the CIO side, and then it's kind of spurred like if that alert and escalation wasn't auto closed or not looked at, that if it was actually analyzed, it probably would have aided more of this investigation, even potentially prevented the access from this event from occurring.
Sounds good. All right, let me quickly, from the narrator seat here, it looked like a lot of confusion over who was responsible for doing what and what was the right priority. What should you guys have been prioritizing and working on? Now, obviously, in this case, you guys don't all work together. You don't fill the roles that you've been acting to fill. So that's understandable. But I know that there have been people on the call who've seen this exact same thing happen when you're actually at a company and running one of these tabletops for an organization. That's why I didn't see anybody actually following the guidebook or the incident response plan. And normally you trick people or you attack people to go back to follow the plan, because the plan is the blueprint. You've already made all the thoughts. Making the decisions about what you need to prioritize becomes less of a we should do this, we should do that, and rather, oh, we know we're going to do this. First we do this, then we do this, then we do that. So I can't speak for anybody else running exercises, but the number of times I've seen an organization that has a fairly well-developed incident response plan and a playbook throw it out the window when they're actually doing a tabletop or a real event is frightening. And this is a good example of stuff to put in there. I'd also like to say, Jim, you're in chat. Your contributions, your questions was outstanding. There was some really good stuff there. And I think you helped the team and you asked some good questions that I wish I'd had time to actually provide answers for. Rob, I'm going to hand it back to you. Rob Henley, I'm going to hand it back to you to wrap stuff up.
All right. Well, that was interesting. I think I'm going to be freshen up that resume, maybe looking for a new sales role. But huge thanks to our players for coming on and playing, Dan for coming on and facilitating and showing us the widget world conundrum that we had today and the TTX Works platform. That was super cool and fun to see. For anybody who's on, we will send out a follow-up email. It'll have a couple of things included in it. You'll get a link to a survey. We will have a link to sign up in the Ally platform if you want to view an after actions report. And yeah, we hope you come back for another Tabletop Thursday next month. It'll be July 23rd, I believe. So we'll see you there.
Thanks, everybody.